there is a broad scope for lawyers. As law graduates, there's a broad scope of sort of options that you have once you have some sort of mastery over the insolvency law. Broadly speaking, there is litigation as a career choice, and then there are transactional lawyers. So what Ravitej and I do is sort of in litigation, we appear before the NCLT, we brief senior counsel in the NCLT for different stakeholders in the process. But what I want to tell you here is that there are two broad sort of categories of litigation. One is the pre-admission phase. Section 7, 9 and 10, that is when you actually go to court and make the application for the commencement of the insolvency process. That is prior to the admission of the application. So look, we can tell you with some degree of confidence that because the sort of financial thresholds are very low, so today actually as a consequence of a notification the thresholds are 1 crore now, but really there is a large volume of litigation that is presently faced by the NCLT. And a lot of people see this as a pressure tactic, right? So given that the consequences of insolvency are so drastic, even an operational creditor who has extended goods and services, even if he doesn't see any possibility of recovery, simply goes and files an application. It's become a pressure tactic. The ease with which you can go to the court is much lesser. There is consequently a large volume of cases, right? And the process has become standardized. There are in fact just forms that you have to fill out. There is a form 1 in the case of a Section 7 financial credit application. There is a form 5 in the case of a Section 9 application. So it's fairly standardized. And as a consequence of all that, the space in pre-admission has become crowded. I'm not saying that there is no scope. It's just become crowded, and it also means that it's a volume game, right? So what that means is that a lot of parties want to get to the NCLT in the cheapest possible means possible. So and because there are so many lawyers, and because the process is so standardized, and some of the lawyers are every day in the NCLT, they are offering their services at throwaway prices. The reason I'm highlighting all this to you is that it's difficult to make a niche or a sort of it's difficult to stand out in a volume game, right? And there are advantages as well. The advantages are that you will be in and out of court almost on a daily basis, and there is no substitute as a litigator to being in court on a daily basis. So the pre-admission phase has its pros and cons. The pros being that you will be in court. The cons being that it's a highly crowded space and it's easy to get lost in the process. I truly believe, and this is my personal view, that there is a large scope of post-admission related litigation that is in fact already sort of happening right now as we speak. And there is a large scope of very creative argumentation in the post-admission phase. Once you graduate from law school, really there are two buckets, of course, as litigators and transaction lawyers, but within the litigation space there are independent lawyers, counsels, and there are law firms. Of course, the compensation is variable for each of these things, and really would depend on sort of the sort of setup that you're in. But really the point, while I finish this piece on litigation, the point I'm trying to make is that as a litigator, there is no substitute to day in, day out litigation if you really want to learn. And while compensation is an extremely relevant factor, the primary, if you are interested in litigation, your primary goal has to be to ascertain whether there is a day in, day out sort of interaction with the courts. Restructuring really is when I am a debtor, I don't want to take examples, I don't want to take names, but I am a debtor, I have severely defaulted in payments, and I basically go to the bank or the financial creditor and I tell them very plainly that, look, I'm not in a position to pay my debts, I'm not in a position to pay my interest, so please restructure the loan in a manner where you can either waive interest payments, or you can take additional security, or give me more time, right? So that's what I mean by saying those three things under the restructuring tab. A lot of banking and finance lawyers in firms, even independent lawyers, basically structure their documentation after negotiating with banks on how to, sort of come up with an optimum solution, in a debt-ridden sort of situation. So the second one is strategic acquisition, right? So this is extremely important. In fact, one of the very recent matters I worked on was for a listed company in Gujarat. An asset reconstruction company. I mean, I don't want to trouble you with the details, but really what ARCs do are that they take on asset-heavy, attractive assets at throwaway prices, right? So what that means is that because you're in a debt sort of situation, and because the promoters are potentially going to be taken out of their control, as a consequence of that, you sort of you allow for those assets to be acquired at a very cheap rate, and the IBC process allows for that strategic acquisition. There are specialized firms in Delhi, in Bombay, actually even in Bangalore and Calcutta, that deal solely with restructuring. Then there are individual lawyers also who sort of do this, and then there are of course law firms who in banking and finance teams and in the corporate and M&A teams that do both restructuring and strategic acquisitions. There is also a career as an insolvency resolution professional. I won't encourage or discourage it. An insolvency resolution professional has a sort of administrative duty, right? Once the insolvency process starts, what the insolvency resolution professional is supposed to do is to assess the claims, convene the meetings of the committee of creditors, see what are the viable resolution plans, look at whether all stakeholders are dealt with. So really that's another career option. There is an immense potential in the policy and regulatory space. A lot of you may be interested in legislative research and specialized sort of regulations, because the Insolvency Code has a specialized agency called the IBBI, which is the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. There are often sort of research deputations given out for people to sort of enable the thinking of the specialized agency. So there's a tremendous potential even in legislative research.